Indeed, he and his army see you from where you do not see them. And we have made the Satans allies and protectors to those who do not believe. Your loved one is in serious trouble, and you, by deciding to call them out of that cult, have come in the firing line of Satan Incorporated. Be prepared spiritually. Be prepared physically. Prepare your heart, your mind, and your body for what's going to come. Number 4, do cross-reference what sources you have found regarding their cult and put them in an orthodox context. Do not make the disastrous assumption that cults quote proofs correctly, be it by way of translation or by way of context. This is why many of them have their own Quran translations. So you need to be very, very careful and cross-reference what sources you have found regarding the cult. You need to cross-reference those. So whatever a cult says, cross-reference them, find out what they've said, read it in context, because you're going to need to show to the loved one that that cult is wrong, and you're going to need to know some of the evidences that they are using. You must also be aware that many of the cults have their own translations of the Quran. They translate them into English, whatever corrupt interpretations they want. I will give you a list of them so that way you might be aware of them. The first one is the Noble Quran as translated by the King Fahd printing complex from the Saudi government. It is also translated under Sahih International with the same doctrinal and creedal errors by the Salafi cult. You should be aware and careful of this translation. The second translation to be careful of is the glorious Quran as translated by Abdullah Yusuf Ali, which again is translated by the King Fahd printing complex by the Saudi government. Abdullah Yusuf Ali studied Mu'tazila theology as well as the doctrine of the Dawoodi Bohras, and although in general having very many good ideas regarding doing a translation into English for Orthodox Muslims, fell foul in many places in Orthodox theology, in the footnotes that he did on the Quran, as well as the actual translation of the verses themselves. We have to beware and be careful of his translations. The next is the Quran as translated by Maulana Muhammad Ali. Maulana Muhammad Ali was one of the major proponents of the Ahmadiyya doctrine, the Ahmadiyya cult, and did a translation of the Quran. The verses that have to do with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he has weakened them, as well as translated many other verses out of context or used wordings that do not fit the actual context from the Arabic into the English. So they've tampered with the actual translation. The next is a translation called the Quran, done by a man by the name of Zafarullah Khan. He again was an Ahmadiyya. He was a member of the Ahmadiyya cult, and he also did faulty translations of the Quran. And so you have to beware of the translation of the Quran by Zafarullah Khan. Protect yourselves from that, and also be aware that the cults use that. Another example is the translation called the Quran, the glorious Quran, by M.H. Shakir, Shakir, and that translation is done by a 12er Shia cultist, and he has put a fairly large index in the back, but also tampered with the translation from the Arabic to English to slate certain ayat as if they are referring to Abu Bakr or Umar in a bad light, as well as attempting to use certain ayat to prove the divinity or semi-divinity of the 12er Imams as well as Ali radiallahu anhu. So you need to be aware of these. Orthodox translations that you can get a hold of are the glorious Quran as translated by Abdul Haq Buli and Aisha Buli. This is available in most Muslim bookstores that I know of. Jamal al-Quran, Jamal, and then Ul-Quran as translated from the Green Dome Society. It can also be ordered from most Muslim bookstores. It's a very thick commentaries on the Quran in order to come to the conclusion on how to translate those ayat. 20 orthodox commentaries. So it is a very good translation. The translation by Imam Muhammad Marmaduke Pickthall of his glorious Quran is very good, although it is in the King James English. It is very good because he studied Arabic as well as Islam for 35 to 38 years at the Islamic Institute in Al-Azhar, and had a panel of Azharite ulama look at it, and they approved it, and he as well checked it several times. There is very little footnotes. However, the text is completely something that one can stand by and use in dialogue and orthodox doctrinal debate. A final one is done by N.J. Dawood, who N.J. Dawood was actually an Orthodox Christian from Iraq, and it is called the Quran. It is available at most bookshops that are in town, secular bookshops, be they Waterstones or Borden's books or W.H. Smith or others. Although an Orthodox Christian, his translation actually towers above all of those of the cults, for he has quoted some 70 commentaries in using them for the translation of the Quran from the Arabic into the English, and he did so for an Arabic doctrine. The only thing is he has perhaps 2 to 3 footnotes that he has put there for cross-referencing with the Bible, which I think are not necessary to be put there, but really that's all that one can really say is wrong with his translation. Those are the actual Orthodox translations that one could get a hold of, and one should be aware of the false translations that exist out there. Number 5, do continue to show them the same love as before. The loved one in the cult is not the enemy. Continue to show them the same love that you showed them before. Because this is what Sayyiduna Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu had to do with his own mother, who was still worshipping idols when he became a Muslim. Through his careful nurturing and his good manners and good character and his constant pleading and beseeching Allah, she later became a Muslim. So do continue to show them the same love as before. Number 6, do stay as calm as possible, but firm in faith in dialogue. So when you do have to confront them regarding their initiation into a cult, be as calm as possible. Do not become over-emotional. It is difficult because with loved ones, we love them. And of course we could cry, we could become angry, say things that we regret. But this is a time where you do not want to make that mistake, because you will regret it and you could lose them permanently, and they could be lost forever in the hereafter. Number 7, do learn about the leader of their cult to have accurate knowledge of its background. So you need to know about the leaders of these cults. Not everything in detail, but the general points and where they parted from Muslim orthodoxy, so that way you know the standpoint that you need to approach. You want to come from the major doctrinal areas that they are mistaken in, and then show where the cult leader is wrong. Number 8, do pray sincerely, supplicating for them as they are under demonic affliction, and for yourself, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may use you as a tool. So pray often for them, make dua for them, dedicate as much as you can to them, so that they do not fall foul and victim of these cults. We come to our next section, which is do nots. Number 1, do not bar people who are cultists access to the house or persecute them. The worst thing that you can do with someone who is a cultist is to bar them access to their home or persecute them. This goes absolutely 100% with what their cult leaders tell them. You're going to be oppressed because you're following the truth now. You're going to be oppressed because you finally found the only true religion, the only true Islam, and get yourself ready, you're going to be persecuted. Their mind has been filled with this. And the worst thing that you can do is fall into the trap of self-fulfilling prophecy by going and doing the very thing that they believe is going to happen to them. Number 2, do not argue over periphery issues. Things such as the virgin birth that the Ahmadiyya deny, although these are doctrinal, They are not the core issues that cults go astray in all at once.